What's up, everyone? Got Bill VanderHeyden on, and Bill, the founder of Ironwill Outfitters, right?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Broadhead, phenomenal broadhead company, and you guys are now you have vanes, you have broadheads, you got knives, you got arrows. You guys have expanded your line. That's awesome. We're gonna talk about that stuff today. First and foremost, though, caribou hunt from last year. Like that was watch that on the Cafaro YouTube channel the other day. That was an awesome hunt.
Yeah, that's an amazing place, and, yeah, thanks for having me on, by the way.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, that hunt, it's funny, I hadn't seen that film until, like, last week either, just before it came out. The guy on Dan Collins is working on it. He actually got a caribou too in the hunt, but since he was also the cameraman, he didn't really get his film, but, yeah, that's an amazing place. I've been up there, 3 times now over the last 5 years, up in the Brooks Range of Alaska. Just a wild place, just caribou and grizzly bears, wolverines, um, and, we saw muskox, well, it's just an amazing place, and I love being up there.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and the hunt kind of worked out a little funny in how it was portrayed in the film. I don't know how it was in actual like real life, but basically the main guy who was in the film is I forget his name, but he ended up
Anders,
Anders, yeah. Anders
yeah.
ended up switching from a bow to a gun because it just wasn't happening on like day 6 or 7 or something.
Yeah, and he's not a real experienced, bow hunter, I think, he yeah, I think the shot was maybe 40-yard shot on a couple of big bulls, and what's funny is I saw that whole thing play out because I was up on a peak that those bulls came over from behind me. It's kinda weird that caribou can just come from anywhere and just, you know, cross anywhere, and they're always moving quickly, but I saw the whole thing play out, and I thought he killed it for sure because it looked to me like these things came right up to those guys. So we found this ridge where they'd been kinda traveling in this tree. There's very little bushes and trees around there, but except on the river, but this ridge had we called it the tree house, but it's really just a big bushy, bunch of bushes basically, and maybe a 10-foot high little tree there. Those guys hung out there for about 2 days, trying to find trying to get the caribou to come by them. But, yeah, it looked to me like these were going right up to him, and then I saw the shot, the caribou run off. I thought for sure he killed it. Then I found out, no, he shot over its back at 40. So,
Ah, right.
yeah, I think he's, a little target panic there. I think he told me he did something similar on a bear up in Canada at 25, 30 yards where he actually shot over the bear at like a 25-yard shot. And then he got himself under control a little bit, killed that bear. But I think he was kicking himself for not making that shot. It's hard to it's hard to get within 40 yards of a caribou. And for
Oh, I
that,
mean, it looks like you got no vegetation, you got no cover. You just have like these gentle rolling hills kind of.
yeah, I do a lot of spot and stalk on them. And if you get within 70, 80 yards, you're doing pretty well a lot of times. So
Dang.
yeah, for it to be almost perfect and then not work out, he was pretty bummed. He actually got another opportunity later that day, um, and that didn't work out. So I think after a few days, he switched to the gun that I think it was day 5 or 6 actually when he got his. But yeah, he'd switched to a rifle by then.
Right? So then walk me through the day that you I guess both of you killed one, right? Same day?
Yeah. So I'd been, they'd been kind of hanging out at this treehouse spot. So that was their plan. Get up early in the morning. We camped down in the bottom in the river bottom. They would hike up this ridge side and go hang out there for the day, glassing and, waiting for caribou to come by. I didn't quite have the patience for that because I could see caribou. If I see caribou, I want to go after them. So, I was putting on miles all those days and the weather was pretty lousy, but I was hiking miles from camp in the tundra, spotting caribou, trying to stalk on them. And I did get close to a few different bulls where I just didn't take the shot. They were decent bulls, but I wasn't quite ready to end my hunt, and I was looking for something bigger. It'd been my third trip up there. So anyway, the day before we both killed our bulls, really lousy weather. I put on a lot of miles. And I came up to the treehouse where those guys were at for a little bit. Well, I first spotted some bulls from a peak. Then I stopped down and told those guys, "Hey, I spot some bulls over. I'm going to go after them." I left those guys and went after them. And these bulls bedded down, which is it's kind of rare that bulls bed down. They just seem to kind of be moving all the time.
Okay.
But the weather was so bad. It was like sleet and wind and pretty miserable. And this group of I think there was it was 3 bulls, bigger bulls that bedded together, and then there was a group of cows that also bedded maybe 50 yards from them. So I went on this stalk that evening. I crawled in, like there was minimal cover, like a foot high or less. So I crawled in the last 300 yards through while it was raining, and so my rain gear was kind of giving up at that point when you're rubbing it and crawling in it. So I was
Yeah.
soaked, my elbows, knees were soaked. I crawled in that last 300 yards and I'm like on my belly, about 40 yards. Well, no. I think it was 57 yards from these bulls. And it was just kind of the crest of a hill and they were below it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to get any closer because if I crawl any closer, I'm just totally exposed. So I sat it out for like an hour in the rain, just waiting for the opportunity on them. And what I didn't realize is there was a grizzly bear also stalking on them that was behind me.
No way.
And yeah, so anyways, these caribou finally go to stand up, and I raise up on my knees and go to draw my bow, and they stand up, look my way as I'm drawing, and just take off running. And I was pretty low, and I was like, it was crushing for one to spend hours on this stalk, get that close, and then not get a shot. And I really felt like they could stand up, and I'm going to draw. They're going to see me and be curious enough. They're not going to blow out. That's kind of been my experience. But I think what actually happened is they saw the grizzly bear behind me too, standing up looking at them. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I didn't know it at the time, but they blew out. And yeah, I come to full draw and they're just running away from me. So it was pretty crushing that I did not get a shot. And then, as they go off and I'm glassing and I stand up and I look and there's like 80 yards behind me is a big grizzly bear standing there. It was also on the stalk, but this particular bear was like the third time I'd seen him. And it seemed like we had an understanding already that he wasn't, he was an adult male, pretty sure, but he wasn't a giant. He was pretty good size, but he wasn't. Anyways, I don't think I've been around grizzlies that are just the big old giant, and they'll just come over and they don't care. But this guy had a little bit of respect for it's another predator. I don't, I'm not really after him. I'm after the caribou. So we had a little bit of a standoff, and then he walked off. So. It wasn't that, but it would have been interesting if he came crawling right by me when I was still there,
Right.
sitting there looking at the caribou, which is probably what would have happened in another 10, 15 minutes. So
Yeah, you're sitting there and you just look over and he's like, oh, you going now or am I going
right.
now?
Yeah. So yeah, that would have been pretty interesting for sure. But anyway, so I saw those 3 bulls. They ran off a bit. And then they just stopped, started feeding again. But it was almost dark. So, well, maybe that's not quite true. I think I saw them move off enough that I just decided, and it was getting late, but it was probably like 10 p.m., but you can hunt till, it doesn't get dark till midnight or something. But
yeah.
I think I was pretty shot. I decided to go back, regroup, go after them the next day, which is what I did. I hiked back out to that ridge to the high point where I'd last seen them, and I spotted them, but they were moving. They were going down that hillside down towards the river. And then Anders and Dan were across the river up on the opposite ridge. That's where that treehouse was. And that was their plan in the morning, go back, hike back to the treehouse again. So they saw the bulls too. They didn't realize it, but I'd already seen them. It was like stalking on these bulls. I saw those guys start heading down the ridge, going after them with a rifle. And I thought, uh-oh, they're gonna get the first shot on these guys. So I just positioned myself in a spot where I thought, after they shoot, maybe I'll get an opportunity here to make a move on them. And sure enough, these caribou went down. They walked down the hillside about to the bank where it was going to drop to the river. They were hanging out there, and that's when Anders got the shot. And I want to say it was about 400 yards or something like that. He shot one of the bulls. There's really two bulls that the two out of three were the biggest. One had bigger beams.
Okay.
And one of them had beams weren't quite as big, but he had more points total. And I sat and stared at these guys from like, I think it was like 57 yards away for like an hour. So with my binos, I studied them in detail. I was it was a toss up on which one I wanted to kill. It was like either one that stands up, I'm going to shoot, because one had bigger beams, which I love, those big giant beams. And the other one had more points. But anyways, after he shot, they left, and I saw which way they're going. I came down to this little group of bushes, kind of got in front of them for an ambush. And it worked out well. They came by at my shot was 79 yards, which is it's a pretty long shot, but I know that's what the shot's going to be out there. Like 60 to 80 yards is probably going to be my shot on caribou. So I practiced a ton to 100 yards with broadheads. I knew I could make the shot. And it worked out well. I raised up on my knees and I drew back, and that movement was just enough to get him to stop and look over my way, but yet not like blow out completely. So
sure.
Yeah. I made the shot. Bull ran about 80 yards and dropped. And I was super excited. Giant bull. So
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Dude, 80,
awesome.
yeah. I mean, to have them have those caribou come through closer, like come your way, which is what you're really hoping for. So many times you set up in that scenario and it doesn't happen. They like turn around and run the other way or whatever it is.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
They come your way, and then, from the video, it does not look like it's 80 yards. It looks like it's like 35. It looks like they're right there for you.
Right. Right. Well, the video they were a quarter mile away taking that video. So they were like, 400 or 450 yards away. So I was surprised they even got that good of a video, but they had I guess a good zoom lens on it. But yeah, you're right, from that vantage point. And that's been typically what I've seen too, is like when I see somebody else shooting at an animal from a long ways away, it always looks like the animal's like right next to them.
Right.
Then they'll tell me later, like, no, that was a 50-yard shot or something like that.
Yeah, dude, he was on top of you.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and then it was like downhill, right? Was it a downhill shot? They were below you?
Yep, it was downhill. Not super steep. I don't know. Probably more like a 10, 15 degree, something like that. So
okay. Yeah. No, and then they take off and then tips over. And were you concerned about your grizzly buddy after you tipped over?
What's funny is that we were using the inReach. We'd use the inReach to communicate up there, through just texting through satellite. And on my way, as I got to my bull, and I'm super pumped, taking a few photos, I get a text from those guys saying, "Grizzly bear headed your way." And I'm like, "Oh crap!" And what I didn't realize is that text, they sent me that text the night before when I was on that stalk sitting on those caribou.
Oh,
because they saw that grizzly bear coming up the ridge towards me. But the thing with inReach is you don't always get the message on time. Sometimes you get like half hour later. Well, I got it the next day and the next morning. So I'm like, oh crap, there's a grizzly. I'm trying to butcher a caribou and there's a grizzly bear heading my way. So my head's on a swivel, watching for
Yeah,
this thing. Um,
pretty high
and I got my,
anxiety
so like,
levels.
yeah, I've got a 44 pistol that I carry when I'm hunting in grizzly bear country typically. So, I mean, I had it in my pocket, but yeah, it's never fun when a grizzly bear shows up for sure.
No.
But no, it didn't show up because that was the day before.
No, that's great. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to, yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you were practicing with broadheads out to 100 yards, and I wanted to kind of, I don't know how many whitetail hunters utilize your broadheads, but I did want to have you on because I've been shooting them for I think 7 years or so now, which is your company 6 or 7 years, and your company's been around for 7, 8 years, so it's pretty
Yeah,
cool. You guys are growing, you guys are growing your line and everything, and so yeah, can you talk a little bit about your background, um, like and where you
sure.
came from, and then how you got into making broadheads?
Yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin,
Yeah,
hunting whitetails. So,
there we go. Where? I'm from Wisconsin. Let's see it.
oh, are you?
Yeah.
Montello.
Oh yeah, good old Montello. Kind of right around the Dells. Um,
Yeah,
yep. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wisconsin Dells, Portage area,
Mhm.
and yeah, I still go back there and deer hunt. So where are you from?
I am south of there. I live just outside of, well, kind of from the Madison area, suburbs of Madison. I grew up in
Okay,
McFarland, but
okay,
yeah, now I live closer towards like Johnson Creek, Lake Mills, in
okay,
that neck of the woods.
okay. I didn't realize you're from Wisconsin even. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Oh yeah.
I went to school in Madison for engineering. So,
Okay.
um,
Gotcha. Yeah,
yeah.
I ended up at the real engineering school called Platteville, which is
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a pretty good school. Yeah, it's a good
right.
school.
No,
Right.
yeah, I ended up at Platteville. There are two reasons. One, a buddy of mine who was also going there owned 240 acres, 10 minutes from campus. So
Nice.
that was a nice benefit. Um, and then the other one was I played soccer in high school. I played at a pretty high level, and they offered me a spot on the team there. So I ended up going to
Cool.
Platteville, getting a business degree, and then basically like between soccer practices, I was hunting whenever I could.
Yeah, that's a good area. I used to hunt a little bit north of there. I got a buddy that's from that area, but yeah, really hilly, lots of bluffs, cool country
Yep.
around there.
Yeah, yeah. You got it. Yeah. So last year I got 2 bucks with your broadheads, just outside of Dodgeville. So if you know
Oh
that
yeah.
area, yeah. Yeah,
Well, that's actually where my buddy lived is around there. So, yep.
yeah. Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
look at that. We're just making connections.
Yeah, I shot my first turkey there too because where I was at in Montello, there weren't turkeys when I was, in high school and even into college. But that area, Platteville, Dodgeville, had some turkeys then. So that was my first
Mm,
experience turkey hunting. Was that now they're everywhere, but at the time, that's the first time I'd ever seen a turkey. Probably
yeah.
was over in that area.
Dang. Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
I
so
mean, nowadays you can, in that area, you basically get unlimited turkey tags. You can buy one a day until they're out, and they never sell out.
nice.
Yep.
Well, I'm working on a turkey broadhead. So and that's the
Are you
this is the
really?
first this is the first I've mentioned it. So you get the exclusive on that. Yeah.
Sweet. So what is it, is it like a guillotine style, or is it just like a super wide cut?
I don't want to reveal
Okay. No,
anything
that's
yet,
fine.
but I've spent the last few years, trying a few different things that I thought would work well, and the thing I came up with and used this past year did work really well. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to come out with that. It'll probably be this spring when I come out with it. But anyway,
Okay.
it got me back into turkey hunting a bit
Yeah.
here, so that was fun. But yeah, I grew up whitetail hunting. I just loved bow hunting for whitetails. Still do. But when I was I think I was 29 when I moved to Colorado and started elk hunting, and just became just obsessed with archery, elk hunting, and I like mule deer hunting, and I like just mountain hunting in general.
Yeah.
Bears, mountain goats. I drew a sheep tag this year.
Nice. Oh yeah,
But anyways, the
that's a good
yeah,
that we
the
should talk about that because you're going on that in like a few days.
yeah, I'm gonna leave Monday for that. So
Yeah.
I've been taking a couple scouting trips already. It's gonna be a tough hunt, but the first scouting trip I put on 22 miles and didn't see a sheep at all. It was 22 miles of hiking and glassing. So
Dang.
it's pretty limited number of sheep in this area and like lots of cliffs where they could be. Um, but the last time I went out, I spotted 3 mature rams. So I'm super pumped to get out there here
And
soon
they
and
gotta
go
be, are
after them.
they like you have to full curl, right? Is that like,
Um,
or what's the rule in Colorado?
it's it's got to be over a half curl to be
Okay,
legal. So
gotcha.
like yeah, like 5/8, 3/4 or full, something like that.
Yeah. And so when you say
Yeah.
mature, those are over half curl.
Yeah, these are like all like 3/4. The
Nice.
3 I saw were like 3/4 to full curl, I would say. So,
Nice. That
yeah.
eliminates the hesitancy of like, do I shoot that? Is that one half or is not? You know, you see that in a lot of sheep films and in moose films. It's like, is that a 60-inch wide? Is it gonna go 60? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I'm not planning to shoot something that's too close to call,
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's a lot at stake for you.
yeah.
Uh, so okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted your story, but you love the mountains. You moved to Colorado, you love the mountains, you love mountain hunting. So you're getting really into
Yeah, so, I would say I definitely understand whitetail hunting and, I but when I moved to Colorado, for 10 years, I didn't whitetail hunt, even though it was, like, my favorite thing I'd ever done
yeah.
prior. I just got well, I had a job and 3 kids at the time when I first moved out here, and so I didn't have unlimited time and vacation, for myself, so I kind of it was all going into, mountain hunting and elk hunting, and, now I hunt whitetails in like, last year, I hunted them in Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Texas, so I do a lot of whitetail hunting now as well, but, yeah, it was different for me going from whitetail hunting. I never practiced past 40 yards. I never probably shot past 30, actually, on an animal, and, going out west, and now, when I was limiting myself to a 40-yard shot, I was just passing up a lot of shots on elk and mule deer that were 50 to 60 yards,
Hmm.
and so I realized pretty quickly that if I could extend my effective range, I'm gonna have way more opportunities, and then and I'd extend my effective range about, 10 yards per year probably with a lot of practicing. But, at this point, I've got a range outside here. I live in the foothills on an acreage, and I've got a range that I can shoot. I mean, the furthest I have actually shot is probably like 140 or something, but
Okay.
I have targets to 100 that where I'll shoot broadheads and field points every day. I do a lot of shooting at like 50, 60, and then 100 yards because it really tells me like if my form is good, if my equipment, if there's any issues with my equipment. But yeah, if you'd have told me 10 years ago I could stack broadheads and field points in, I've got my 100-yard target. There's a 13-inch yellow foam square and then a 5-inch black circle in that. If you'd have told me I could stack most of my arrows in that 5-inch circle and probably all of them in a 10-inch circle at 100 yards with broadheads and field points, I'd have said, no way. That's crazy. That's impossible. Um, but, and really, first I spent a lot of time developing broadheads that could for sure penetrate and pass through an elk, including shoulder blades or whatever. And in the last few years, I've really spent a lot, dug deep into just arrow flight with broadheads on the front and how to be more accurate.
Mm.
And I'm amazed at how well, you can shoot at that distance. Now, I'm not encouraging, I want to make it clear, I'm not encouraging, you know, unethical long range shots when you're not capable of making the shot. And I don't shoot 100 yards at animals either,
Yeah.
because I know that conditions aren't perfect when you're out there. But I could tell you that when I'm calm and the flat ground's flat and I'm shooting in my backyard, I'd have no doubt I would hit an elk every time at 100 yards, with our broadheads. That's
Yeah.
that's how well the system is set up, and I'm not the best shot in the world, but I'm good enough to make that shot.
Yeah.
I limit myself to kind of under 80 at um, on a hunt, even if conditions are perfect. And if conditions aren't perfect, then I'm cutting distances down from that, you know.
Yeah.
I was on a caribou hunt where I never took a shot, where I had them at 70 to 80 yards over and over, just the conditions weren't right for it, so I never took the shot.
Sure. Yeah, to rehash, so the first and only elk I've shot was with an Ironwill. And at about like 8 a.m. I had an either sex tag. At 8 a.m. I ran into a cow, and she was walking, we were walking up a ditch, like up a gully basically. We were on the left side, she was on the right side, and she started at 60 yards and she was walking to like 75, and she kept going. And my buddies, I had just bought a sidebar stabilizer, and I was the only one in camp, so everyone was making fun of me. Ooh, look at Heller, he's got the sidebar, right?
Right, right.
Um, so then so my buddy's looking at me, and she stopped. Cow elk stopped, standing there at like 68, and he's like, shoot her, dude, shoot her. And I was like, God, I don't like the shot. I don't like, and it was all like, oh wow, there's one, shoot it, go, go, go. And I'm just like, what range is she now? What range is it? And like, it all happened way too fast. I was like, I just don't like the shot. And so he's like, so she ends up walking off. I'm like, I'm not gonna take it. And all of it happened in under like 15 seconds. And then my buddy looks at me and goes, why do you have a sidebar if you ain't taking 70-yard shots, dude? You sidebar 70 or more, man. And I was like, dude, I'm not comfortable on it. I'm not comfortable on it. And then what do you know, like an hour and a half later, I get a shot at this 4x4 at 25 yards, perfectly broadside, perfect conditions, just walks right in. Right.
Nice.
So I was like, okay, I understand the perfect conditions, because I had been at that year, I had been practicing out to 100 to make sure that a 60-yard shot on an elk, if I had to take it, was not going to be something out of my league, right? Um,
Right.
and so I was like, could I have made that shot? Probably, but just the scenario just didn't work out, and I was like, I'd rather not spend our last day trailing a gut shot elk, or some wounded elk or something, like whatever it would have been. Like, I just didn't want to do that. So I was like, she gets the pass.
Yeah, confidence is very important in archery and bow hunting, and that's what happens to me a lot too. It's like I'll see an animal, I'll range it, I'll draw back. If I don't feel confident in the shot, I'm not going to take it. And sometimes I'll think about it later, like, man, that was closer than you've taken shots before. Why didn't you take it? It's just you just kind of know. It's like I don't feel confident. It's not going to get. If you
Yeah.
don't feel confident, it often doesn't go well. So, but then
Yeah.
I've had
No, that's
shots
fair.
at, I've had shots at. I had a shot at my biggest bull yet. Um, it was an 82-yard shot, and I just thought I wanted to get closer, but this is going to be my last opportunity on this bull. He's like, it's a long story, so I won't tell you it all. But I knew it was like it's now or never on this bull. I thought I'm just gonna draw back, see how I feel. I drew back, settled in. I felt 100% confident I can kill this thing, and I made a hard shot at 82 yards. And
Yeah.
but I've had animals that were 60 or 70 that I drew back, and I just like I don't think I would make the shot, and I didn't take it. So
Sure.
it's and
Yeah, I would definitely
yeah,
agree. I've been doing more and more 3D archery, and you can really understand your confidence level in a 3D shoot, like a tack shoot or something, where you draw back and you're like,
yeah,
if you don't have confidence in that shot, you're probably like gonna miss the target, or you're gonna hit it. You're just gonna hit it in the ass or something. Whereas you draw back and you're rock solid, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna drill this thing. Then you let it go, and you do.
yeah.
um, so as you're growing in Colorado, and you're doing, 10 or so years, right? And you're doing all these hunts. Why start a broadhead company? Like, why did you get into broadheads?
Yeah, I had a broadhead fail to penetrate an elk shoulder blade.
Okay.
So I don't know if you knew the story or not, but I yeah, I moved to Colorado. I felt like I was a pretty good whitetail hunter. Like, bow hunting can always humble you for sure. But I felt like I kind of things figured out. Whitetail, I could target a big buck, kill it that year. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm a badass bow hunter. I'm just gonna like be a good elk hunter right away. And Man, it was a steep learning curve on elk. I tried to use my, whitetail knowledge, and it wasn't helping me at all. And so and also, surprisingly few, I took a job with a startup company in Boulder, Colorado, and I had no idea that Boulder, Colorado has like 1% hunters or less, And so I was working, I worked for a startup company that grew from 40 people to 100, and I was the only bow hunter. And I thought
Okay.
when my first day at work, I had lunch with the engineers and said, "Hey, where do you guys elk hunt?" They're like, "Oh, we don't hunt." Like, what? You live in Colorado, you don't elk hunt? Where I'm from in Wisconsin, everybody, I mean, it's probably not everybody, but over half the guys hunted.
Mhm.
Maybe three quarters. I'm from small town Wisconsin, so everybody either hunted or somebody in their family deer hunted. So it was kind of foreign to me to move someplace where I had to explain, what hunting was and why I would do it and stuff like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I didn't get any help or mentorship. I just kind of figured it out on my own, and it took me 5 years to get a shot on a good bull, to figure out how elk act, how there's a and to get in shape. I thought I was in good shape until I started hunting at 10 to 12,000 feet in the steep mountains. So
Yeah.
anyways, there was a lot of things I had to get better at, but I finally get this shot on a bull, shot just a little bit forward, hit the scapula, and the bull ran away with the whole arrow sticking out of it. Like that broadhead did not get through that scapula. And I spent 5 days looking for that thing. I'm sure it probably lived, but it was just crushing to have worked that hard for years to finally get that
Mhm.
shot and then not and then have it end in, heartbreak instead of taking that bull home. So I just kept looking at my broadhead and realizing all the failure modes there. I was mechanical engineer. I've been developing products, at a high level for companies for many years by then. I could see all the failure modes in it. I'd also had a lot of background in material selection, steels, things like that. Um, but I pretty quickly understood, like, what am I doing using this thing that's got all these ways it can fail, So I kind of resolved right there. I was going to use my engineering to research and find a better broadhead or make a better broadhead. So that's what started me out on.
Mm.
And, it was probably 7 years later when I had my final design, and then 3 more years of hunting with it. So it was about a 10-year process before I actually came to market with the broadhead, and that was never my intention. It was just I want to make a broadhead better for me, so I have confidence that well, the broadhead's not going to fail. This broadhead is going to for sure get through a shoulder blade if I shoot a little forward, or
Mhm.
whatever. But just the performance was blowing me away, like it way exceeded my expectations. And the other people I hunted with or my friends were I was making some for them, and I was spending a lot of time sharpening broadheads, and I finally felt like, I should just go to manufacturing with this, so that I have a bit better supply for myself, but I can also, supply people. And I actually never thought it would be a full company because I thought my costs to make this are so high that people aren't going to. I just priced it what I needed
Mhm.
um, to like try and have a viable company. And like I mentioned to you just before we started recording that it was for 2 years I didn't draw a salary. I was doing all kinds of side work to pay the bills. Um, but I just felt like I want to make these better products so people can have confidence. And like we coined the saying kind of as reliable as science allows. We want people to have confidence that their broadhead's going to do the job if they can, do the job there. But
Mhm.
um, anyway, that's how it all started. I didn't really expect it to take off, but I think people started realizing, yeah, it's expensive, but you kind of get what you pay for, and the performance here is it's worth it to some people. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like so, when I started the journey, like when I first started elk hunting, I think I slapped on a G5 Montec, I think is what I had in my quiver, right?
yeah,
And I was just running around with those. And then, over the course of, multiple trips out there and other buddies getting shots and stuff like that, you're it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and people are hitting shoulders. People are like, I had one buddy, and I'm not. saying this, it happens with all rage broadheads, but the dude's like 6'7". He's got a 31-inch draw and he's shooting 70 pounds. And he shot at, he was sitting on a log, smoking a heater. And here comes a 4x4 elk at 25 yards. Wasn't even doing anything. He's like, oh my God, thank you, Lord. Right? Draws back,
Right.
shoots the thing, hits it in the shoulder. The arrow literally bounced backwards and fell into a bush. And so, like, he got like a 1/4 inch, like, he has video of it on his GoPro. He's like, dude, this is literally what happened. We just found it sitting on a bush. I have a 1/4 inch of penetration and blood. Like, it's like,
So where
what the
did he
hell?
hit it? What did it hit? Do you know?
He thinks he hit it in the shoulder. He doesn't know if it was like the actual, the shoulder like knob, or if it was a scapula or where. But he said he goes, I thought I drilled
Yeah.
it, and here's the arrow sitting on the ground with no penetration whatsoever. Um, and I've seen like
Yeah.
guys who will shoot fixed blades, even if they hit it in like the, what do you call, like the knob of the shoulder, like that really,
A
um,
knuckle.
yeah, the knuckle. Like, even if you hit it in the knuckle and you're shooting a good fixed blade, you're gonna get like an inch and it's gonna stick, right? You're gonna get 2 inches and it's gonna stick. And this thing just bounced out. So in hearing some of those stories, it's like, all right, I gotta figure something out. So that doesn't happen to
Yeah.
me. I don't want that to happen to me. So then that's when, and at that point I'd gone elk hunting, I think 3 years, and I hadn't gotten an opportunity. So it's like, all right, well, do I want an opportunity where I finally get a chance at this thing, and I put in all these hours, all this money to come out here, and I finally get a chance, and I haven't my arrow bounce off. I was like, no, I'm willing to pay the extra money to make sure that when I get the opportunity, I'm gonna have the highest odds of success, and my gear isn't gonna be the reason I fail. Like,
Yeah.
so, and when I did get that opportunity on the 4x4, I did punch through scapula. So it went straight through the
Nice.
scapula. Yeah, double lung. And it was funny because that was the third bull that was shot in our group that year that I was with.
Nice.
Um, and my buddy looks at me and he's like, did you hit it like in the money? And I was like, yeah, I hit it in the money. He's like, are you sure you hit it in the money? I was like, yes, I hit it in the money, because one of the guys had taken a frontal and he hit it in like the shoulder. He hit it in the knuckle and got like 3-4 inches of penetration. Arrow broke off and lost it. But so then, yeah, so then we were blood tracking it, right? And I had a full pass through even with the scapula hit. And the only thing, yeah, I mean, I had two holes and the elk made it, I don't know, made it probably like 10 yards before the arrow fell out the other side. It was funny because it was hanging in the elk by the knock. So like the
Oh,
knock
really?
had somewhat pulled out. And so when I got the arrow, the knock was gone, but the arrow was there. So I'm like, okay, the knock is stuck like in his hide basically.
Huh.
And I was shooting nocturnals. So that's how I knew that I had hit him. I'm like, yep, I know exactly where I hit him. Bright blue light, just
Yeah.
right in the moneymaker. So yeah, and the whole time we were tracking him, he went like 80 yards. But when you're blood trailing an animal and you don't know exactly where it is, you're like, every 5 yards, you're like, did you get him? Are you sure you
Yeah.
got him? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, super, super excited that I got that. And yeah, like I said, it passed through the scapula on one side, on the front side when
Cool.
it entered and came out, because he was slightly quartering too. And I didn't, when I drew my bow back and you're looking in the peep and he's like, 15 degrees quartering two, you don't necessarily always see that, right? So
Right.
so yeah, it was great that the shot, made it all the way through, even full pass through. So I was super stoked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I've probably had I bet it's up close to 100 people now tell me that they've got a pass through on an elk, including a shoulder blade.
Mm.
This is over several years and being at a lot of shows and things. But
Yeah.
and then people want to show me the photos, which I love. I love hearing that success because I know what it's like to make that shot and then lose the bull and the anguish from that,
Yeah.
kicking yourself for months and for the broadhead I made to get them that, excitement of that, of taking home that elk versus not. I love
Hmm.
love to hear about it. And, other broadheads, including mechanicals, sometimes they will punch through that scapula and do okay, a 3 blade or a mechanical. but a lot of times they won't. And that's kind of the problem and that's really the problem with mechanicals in general, I feel like, is that sometimes they can work great. Often they can work great, but they also have a lot of failure modes, and they can hang up on the smallest of thing, a thin scapula or sometimes just a rib. There's a lot of videos of them bouncing off deer, just hitting a rib. I think maybe they're
Mhm.
just aligned vertically on a rib or something and hit and bounce out. Just as a mechanical engineer and studying impacts a lot, I can understand when that thing's opening and those thin blades and the way they flex. I can just hang up on those things and absorb a ton of energy and just have that arrow not go in. Um,
Yeah.
so I know that a lot of guys use them on elk and recommend them, and these are good hunters. A lot of them are pro, target shooters and stuff. I feel like these guys, they've accuracy is so important. It's made the paycheck for so many years. They don't want to give up an quarter inch on accuracy, and so they want to. And we could talk about why mechanicals are more forgiving in flight, and you can shoot them most guys can shoot them more accurately with any arrow setup, versus having one that's more specialized for fixed. But I feel like they don't want to give up any accuracy, so they're using them, pushing them, and they can work great. And you see when they work great. But I can tell you, I also know these guys enough, and the guys that hunt with them to know, yeah, they have a fair number of failures too that you don't see because they just do
Mhm.
have these failure modes. And that's why I really don't like to see people using mechanicals on elk. Even on whitetails, I think that the shots aren't that far. Like an Ironwill wide has a 2 1/8 inch total cut. Um, so I say, why not use that over a mechanical? It's the same total cut, but yet if you hit scapula, spine, you want to do a frontal, quartering on through the shoulder blade. Man, I get through all those shots and get complete pass throughs and arrow sticking in the dirt versus
Mhm.
mechanical. It might get through, but it might not.
Yeah.
So, coming around to why might use them for a whitetail, or why, yeah, why are more whitetail guys using them? I think it's just the reliability. It's going to get through when things don't go perfect. And I used to think they're a bit overkill for whitetails, but in reality, whitetail of all the species I hunt, I'm most likely to hit a whitetail in the wrong place because it moved. They're so much
Mhm.
more, they're so much quicker to move, that, even though I think I was aiming perfect, it ducked and I hit spine, or it turned into it and I hit shoulder blade. So anyways,
Yeah,
long
I mean,
story
I
short,
could.
that's why I think it's a good choice for whitetail, just because of that reason. Gives you the reliability of getting through things.
Yeah, and the main reason, one of the things that's always pushed me towards the fixed blades is the fact that, like, you don't really have an opportunity for failure. There's failures about every mechanical out there. And, nobody's perfect, but the hardest part about fixed blades is the tuning process, right? People want to make sure that they tune, and then you even see, online people say, hey, this broadhead, this fixed blade tunes perfectly. This one tunes really well. This one tunes well. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but can't you tune your bow to basically, 90% of the broadheads on the market? Like every broadhead's tunable, right?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say. I mean, I don't think broadhead tuning is the way to go about it or think about it. It's more,
Okay.
you should get your setup so that it's forgiving and appropriate for the head that's on the front.
Okay.
Because I feel like with my setup, I could screw on a bunch of different broadheads and have them hit well. The iron will ones are made very precise. They're going to spin very true. So they're going to probably have tighter groups than others. But I feel with my arrow setup, my bow setup, I'm going to shoot fixed blade well, broadheads well, in general. But to me, you really just need to do a few things. Um, you need to be, you want to be properly spined. You don't want to have excessive flexing, and that's something that doesn't matter really with target archery. You can be underspined, have excessive flexing of your arrow, all the way down to the target, and
Yeah.
still shoot tight groups with the field point. And mechanicals will still are going to hit better than fixed blades. There's probably still not going to be super tight groups, but if you've got excessive flexing, you're giving some angle, angle of attack kind of to that broadhead the whole way down there. And the broadhead with the blades on the front, and I think I just cut myself just slightly though.
For everybody
But
listening, Bill's got an arrow with a broadhead on it now, and he's playing with it like it's a sparkler, and he just cut himself.
if you got some angle of attack, that airflow across the broadhead creates lift. It creates a perpendicular force that wants to push it off course. And so if you got excessive flexing the whole way there, there's two bad things about that. One, you're creating this lift effect on the broadhead the whole way there. The other thing is now at impact, your arrow is not necessarily going in a straight line. It might be like curved, it might be like bent as it impacts. And so to maximize your penetration, you want the momentum, which is a vector quantity, mass times velocity in a straight line. You want that momentum to be in that straight line to go into the animal. So you want to be optimally spined or slightly stiff. And if you're not sure what that is, check the charts on our website. We make them for all the different amount of weights you might have up front. Total weight up front would be like broadhead plus components. Say it's 150 total, 175 total. We have charts for all those. And with your draw length and poundage, you can see what we recommend your spine should be. And it's all going to be kind of optimally to slightly stiff, from our chart. So number one, make sure you're spined properly. Number two, make sure you've got enough vein for a broadhead on the front. And what I would say is that, mechanicals have some higher drag and higher lift as well compared to field points. They're just not as high as larger blade broadheads. But what I would say is that, and I sponsored a study with the University of Colorado. We had done 2 years of studying, arrow flight with broadheads on the front and different vane designs on the back. And vanes what I recommend is vanes that are over a ½ inch tall. 3 vanes that are 0.55 to 0.58 inch high work really well to stabilize a broadhead. We've got reports on our website kind of explaining restoring torque, lift, drag, all the factors that were studied here. But short target vanes don't work well. And I think there's been more of a trend in recent years to get away from the higher profile, to go to lower profile, maybe longer or even smaller target vanes. That's a fairly unstable arrow. So what happens if for any reason your arrow is not coming straight out of your bow, it's going to open up your groups quite a bit if the arrow is not stable. And in stability, what I mean is if your arrows say tip, tail low coming out of the bow, again, that airflow across the air is going to create this lift or perpendicular force, up in this scenario. You want that flow across the vane to have a lot more force. And, the pivot point is going to be kind of the center of mass. You want that flow across the veins and back to have a much higher force, restoring it and bringing it back on quickly so that you can shoot it accurately. So
Got it.
number two. So that's number two, make sure the vane's tall enough. And we just launched a new vane design based on 2 years of this university study. And this vane does a really great job of being stable and accurate, but yet have lower sound, lower noise, lower drag, lower wind drift than the other industry vanes that we tested. I think in general, from what I see, it's going to make guys shoot better when they have fixed heads with this vane. But, you can take a look at the study. Any of the vanes in our testing that are over 0.5, the ones that are 0.5 inch taller and higher, all do a really pretty good job of that. So that's number two, enough vane. And then number three is just having a relatively well-tuned bow. A well-tuned bow means that your nock is pushing in line with your rest so that your arrow comes straight off your bow. That's a tuned bow. And if your arrow is not coming straight off your bow, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the further out it is, the harder it is for you to hit accurately because your arrow is going to be kind of fishtailing, coming out of your bow. And paper tuning.
When you shoot your bow, and I've had bows like this. My current setup is not doing this, but I've had bows where when you shoot, you can literally see your veins ass end kicking out, and swinging left and right. Is
Yeah,
that
a lot of guy yep, a lot of times you can see it or you have a buddy behind you with a camera. A lot of the cell phones these days have like a higher speed,
Mhm.
higher speed camera, 240 frames per second or something. Have 'em
Yeah.
take a video of your arrow coming off your bow, and you can see this fishtailing right, left, up, or down. I mean, that's one way to check for it. Another way is you shoot through paper. Sometimes you can be fooled a little bit with paper because it might be fishtailing, but you might just be having the paper at the right distance where it doesn't show up so well. Another good check that I'll often have customers do is, and I do this as well, and we also did this at the university study to kind of quantify how far bows were out of tune because we were taking bows out of tune to see how well vanes would
Mm.
correct broadhead flight. But take a bear shaft just with a field point on it. Then I like to add some tape. So if you built all your arrows up, sacrifice one of them, cut the vanes off. You can add a wrap or some tape to get the total weight about the same. So you can shoot a bear shaft versus a fletch shaft with field points. Start at 20 yards to make sure you're not going to miss your target. But um, often 30 yards is where I like people to do it to quantify it. At the university study, what I do, I'll shoot at 30 and then 40. But what happens if your arrow is, say, coming out of your bow tail left? Well, with vanes on it in a field point, it quickly gets corrected, and that arrow can still, say, hit the bullseye. Without any vanes and your arrow's coming out tail left, that arrow just stays tail left, and then the airflow across it makes it hit right.
Push right.
So
Gotcha.
what you'll see is at 30 yards, you might see, okay, the fletch shaft is in the bullseye. The bear shaft is hitting 4 inches right, 4 or 5 inches right. And if you're just shooting a flat foam target, you can kind of see the angle of impact where, okay, the bear shaft's hitting 5 inches right and it's angled tail left. So that's how it's coming out of your bow. It's just making it drift right. And then
Mhm.
you can do slight adjustments to your rest, like a very small amount. Like if you have a micro clicks, 5,000 or something. Maybe only do five clicks, like 15 thousandths at a time. Just do small clicks in the direction. Typically, if you're hitting tail left, you need to move the rest right to fix that. Sometimes it's actually the other way. So you can try moving it right. If it's getting worse, try moving it left. But small amounts, like less than less than 30 thousandths of an inch.
I think
Like that's like a 32nd of an inch. So,
yeah.
so small amounts there.
And that one, so I went through a few years of having an out of tune bow, and I couldn't like get there was something like I couldn't get my rest to like set up properly. And I was
Mhm.
thinking a small movement was like an eighth of an inch or a fourth of an inch. Like I was moving it. And when you're tuning, that is a significant movement, right? You want to
Yeah,
like tap
yeah,
that thing the width of a penny and then lock it back down and give it a go then.
yeah. And
I
I would
think
say that
that's huge.
first off, my first step is I'm actually just paper tuning a bow when it's new. And I might put 100 shots or something to it through it just to feel like I've kind of settled things in and it's more consistent. But I'll shoot through paper, and then I'm keeping my rest at nominal, and I'm shifting. You know, I mostly shoot Matthews or Hoyt, and they're both similar. Where I'm shifting a cam over to get that right left hair to be kind of a bullseye through paper,
Mhm.
bullet hole through paper, more or less. And that's kind of my first step. So I'm not moving the rest at all. Then I'm keeping it at nominal. And then when I'm bear shaft tuning, really at 30 yards, 30, 40 yards, then I'm making very small movements. Because yeah, if you move things like quarter of an inch, you change so many things. All of a sudden it's acting way differently. So yeah, that's why I wanted to
Right.
point out it's
Yeah,
it's
you like
small movements.
overcorrect. Yeah, or and the other thing is I hate to say this, but for everybody, like I mean, it's August right now, and I'm sure a bunch of the whitetail hunters listening are like, "Yep, got to throw my broadheads on," because in Wisconsin, season starts like mid-September. It's usually the third Saturday of September. It's like, yeah, okay, we're a month out. I got to start slinging these arrows, right? And then they'll go out there and they haven't picked up their bow for, a month, and they shoot like three field tips and like, all right, cool. Those are all in there. I'm gonna throw on my broadheads. And there's so many other things at play, and they throw on a broadhead, and they're not, and it's shooting way off, and they throw another one and they're shooting way off, and they're like, what is going on? It's not, I didn't change anything over the year, since last year, and now it's way off. And a lot of times
Yeah.
to me at least, it comes out to, dude, like, take your broadheads off, shoot your bow 100 times, or shoot it over the next couple days, 3, 4 days, and just shoot your bow with your field tips and get used to your form again. Like, figure
Yeah.
out your form, figure out your grip, figure out your anchors again, like, refamiliarize yourself with your bow, and then put your broadheads on so that you can be confident that you're like, no, that should have been a bullseye and it is 3 inches left, you
Yeah.
know?
Form affects tune a lot. So, um, like people that say, "Oh, the bow shop tuned my bow when I bought it." They shot it and tuned it in. Like that does not help you at all, or very little. I could tell you in this university study that I would take a bow that was perfectly tuned for me, put it on the shooting machine, the hooter shooter, and be way out of tune. We'd have to tune it for however that grip pressure is.
Mm,
So, and I used to see this problem too when years ago when I might not shoot my bow for a month, pick it up, and all of a sudden, man, it's hitting differently. It's hitting right. My bow went out of tune. Well, sometimes your bow does go out of tune over time, but often you just change your form a little bit and you're not realizing it too. And to
yeah.
be honest, it's one of the reasons why I don't go more than a few days without shooting kind of year round. I also hunt year round pretty much, but it's if I set my bow down for too long, man, I'll things will hit a little different. My tune will be a little different. I think it's form changes, little
Yeah.
changes in form. But bows do go out of tune too. I mean, string stretch,
Mm,
cams can creep a little bit. And sometimes you dropped your bow and something moved a little bit too, but
right.
it's I would not count on your tune being there forever. And another reason why I like keeping this bear shaft around, because I'll just use it to check my tune once a month or every couple months, or I come back from a hunt in the mountains where maybe my bow got banged around. I'll go shoot my bear shaft, flesh shaft at 30 again. And if the shafts are like, I should maybe quantify at 30 yards, I'd like them to be within a few inches, 2, 3 inches at 30. And the shafts kind of parallel.
Yeah.
At 40, personally, if you're within 4 inches, you're good enough. You don't have to get better than that. If you're up at like 6, 8 inches with the right vein, you're probably still going to shoot pretty well with broadheads. With the wrong vein, you're going to have big issues. With a short vein, you're going to have big issues with your broadheads. Um,
Gotcha.
but that kind of quantifies it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be close enough that your veins can take over and correct it fairly
Hmm.
quickly. But yeah, I like to check my tune periodically because bows don't stay in tune forever, and maybe your form shift a little bit too. So it's just something to keep looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. As people are picking up their bows and screwing on broadheads for the first time and all that jazz. Like, I think there's a lot of when you shoot your bow and you shoot your broadheads for the first time here in August, and all of a sudden they're not perfect, there's a whole lot of anxiety, and there's, probably like 30 things that could be wrong with it. And I feel like I said before, if you just pick up your bow and shoot 100 arrows through it with your field tips, you figure out your form, you figure out what you got going on, like, start with your form, because that's the cheapest thing to change. Right? Just
Yeah,
check your grip, make sure you don't have any, because that was a major problem for me. Was I would anchor, and I would have like cam lean, like I would, or basically like my string would not come off directly off the cams, it would come off to the right, and that was all grip. I just had to adjust my grip, and then my string was coming straight back off the cam. And then once I started doing that, and making sure that was the exact same every time, then I was really able to go, okay, my rest does need to move a 32nd of an inch this way. And then boom, we're in the money, and I'm great out to 60 with my broadheads. Fantastic. Like,
yeah, and it's not a bad idea to shoot, and sometimes you got to swallow your pride a little bit and realize that, hey, maybe I'm not the perfect at everything. I need to get a little bit of input here. But you can go to an archery shop and ask, say, I'm having an issue. I just want you to watch me shoot, or just have a buddy, film you
Mm,
shooting. You'd be it, a lot of things. I'll have somebody, a friend or a relative or whatever, say they're having issues, and I'll go and watch them shoot. I'm like, wait, obviously you're having issues because you're torquing the hell out of your bow. You're
yeah.
you're like you're squeezing your bow, you're struggling to get this back, and you're twisting your bow about 30 degrees, and you're just about pulling the string off the cams, and a lot of times it's not that severe, but it can be that the guy's got, a death grip on his bow, or maybe he hasn't shot and now it's a little hard for him to pull and to hold it full draw. So he's actually like dropping his arm before he even shoots because he's like he wants to,
Get that
it's
thing out
he's
of there.
tired. He's tired. He's tired. He wants to let that bow down.
Yeah.
So he's like dropping his arm before he even pulls the trigger, and he's hitting low. So
Mhm.
yeah, form certainly can be an issue, and you want to make sure that you're not torquing your grip, you're kind of falling through your shot, things like that. But yeah, if you're fixing your problem by screwing on mechanicals, you still have a problem you should fix, because it's gonna make those not shoot as accurately and also hurt penetration. If your arrow's fishtailing
Yeah.
or you're severely under spine, all those are gonna hurt penetration. Mechanical is gonna hurt penetration too. So you're kind of compounding the problem there, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that is certainly the case. If it's out of tune, and a lot of people choose mechanicals because, well, they hit like field tips. I can just put them on, I get a 2 inch cut, and they hit the exact same. Um, but the other thing is, and I'm not hate like I used to shoot. I have schwackers in my quiver that I like have for certain scenarios or whatever. And it's you still need your bow to be in tune. It's not just as simple as like, yeah, just screw it on and it's perfect. And then the first time you ever shoot that at anything, you're shooting it at the animal, right? And like I think that
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
scenario for a lot of whitetail hunters because they just don't. Well, I don't want to waste it because it's a one use only, which is another big reason why I wanted a fixed blade is because I want to be able to. And another good reason why I picked the iron wills to use is because you can just sharpen them back up, like shoot them, sharpen them back up. I mean, I killed the second buck I killed last year was with my like quote unquote target tip. Like I had shot that arrow into my Reinhardt probably like 100 times. And but after every time I would shoot it before I go hunting, I have a little sharpener in the back of my truck and I just sharpen all my broadheads up quick, slot them in, and then I go and I'd shot that one probably 100 times, like I said. Um, and it went
Yeah.
that one would be an interest that you would be interested in that one a little bit because that one also was quartering too. Um, I shot him high, but I got the tops of both lungs. And I shot. He was quartering to. Shot him high, and my entire arrow shaft is about 30 inches long, and the entire shaft was in the body, and it was poking out the back hip. It had just started to penetrate the back. The what am I what am I thinking of? The hide of the back, like right in front of the back hip. And he was quartering too, and that's kind of where I was expecting it to come out. I was
Okay.
expecting a full pass through is at 32 yards, but I did also like I can see why because it was such a steep angle. The whole arrow was in the animal, and he died fairly. I mean, 5 seconds. But but yeah, it was
What, so what bones did it go through?
I don't know. To be very fair on that one, I did not do the autopsy on that on that one. I don't know if it broke any ribs. So that would like, just yeah, I wish I had more information for you.
Okay. No, I was just curious. Some of those frontals and quartering on, there can be a lot of bone to go through, the scapula, the ribs, it can end up going down ribs or along the spine and have to cut
Yeah.
a lot of bone to get there. So I was just curious. I know I shot a pig once on an angling. It was a downward angle, and the arrow went in right between the shoulder blades at the top of the spine, but it's such a steep angle. It had to go through a lot of, and on a pig, there's all this spinal process. There's a lot of bone sticking up that it goes through, and then through the spine itself, and then it buried in the pelvis at the back. So the it went through like feet of bone, basically.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, it's on those. Anyways, on frontal type shots, according to there could be a lot of bone to get through. That's why
Yeah.
you don't want to take those with every broadhead for
Yeah.
sure.
No, that's fair. So here's you kind of brought this up before. You said I had to price them at a price point that would actually like somewhat make us money and try to help us survive. So why like, and this is a point blank question, why are your broadheads, 30, 40 bucks a piece?
Yeah, it's the materials and the manufacturing processes. It doesn't seem like it, but they should cost like 3 times as much as we sell them for, to be honest with you.
Okay.
If you look at what most big companies do and what their typical manufacturing costs are compared to their selling price. But a lot of those heads, they're either a one piece solid, which is and made in a way that's relatively low cost, but they don't typically the one piece solid ones aren't very sharp because they do a kind of a milled finish almost on the edges. So they do it in a low cost way. Or if they're replaceable blades, a lot of times those blades are thin enough. They're made on this reel to reel stamping die where a reel of material, a coil of steel comes in one side and blades come out the other. And these blades are a dime a piece type thing.
Okay.
So a lot of the current manufacturing costs our processes are way cheaper than ours. We make ours like a high end knife. We start with um, a sheet of steel. We do a heat treat on it. We do a cryogenic treatment, a triple temper. We grind that. We we do a lot of machining going on. We do multi-stage grinding, honing on the edges, and we've got a lot of edges. It's Yeah, there's just a lot of cost involved in all that. But also, SARS cost more, but they're not a disposable item. Like you said, you can use them over and over. I've had a number of guys at shows this year come up and show me a head and say, I've killed over 10 animals with this same head type thing. So if you think about it like that, that you can use them over and over, they kind of pay for themselves over time that way.
Yeah.
Um, and we had one thing I hadn't realized, but we got more and more pig hunters using them. And one guy came up to me and told me that he'd shot, I forget, it was 33 or something, 30 some pigs with the same head. He said they shot cheaper heads for years, but what they found out was every time they shot a pig, the arrow wasn't going all the way through. So they'd lose the arrow and the broadhead. So it was costing them the cost of an arrow on every pig they shot. And they'd shoot hundreds of pigs. It was a deer lease, but they would kill hundreds of pigs per year off of this deer lease. But with an Ironwill broadhead, they'd get a complete pass through. It'd save the arrow, so they could reuse the arrow and the broadhead, and it was saving them lots of money because they weren't, they weren't replacing an arrow and a broadhead every shot.
Right. No, I think that's yeah. I think that's very fair. And that like I said, like people like a lot of whitetail hunters are used to, 30 bucks for a 3-pack, right? Or 40 bucks for a
Right,
3-pack, right? And
right,
a lot of those, like, I mean, I even have them. There's fixed blades that are basically disposable as well. You shoot them one time and they're going to bend up. You miss your target one time, it hits a rock, or you get a pass through in your Reinhardt or your target or whatever, and it hits a rock on the other side, whatever it is, and all of a sudden you got a dud arrow, right? It's toast. Whereas,
right.
I have hit a lot of stuff with these iron wills. I've definitely hit rocks. I've definitely passed through. And basically they can get some chips in them, but you just sharpen them back up and they are scooting right through that target right away again. So I think like, again, as far as like, I'm a financially conservative person, but I'm willing to pay for like when I get the opportunity on the 170-inch buck or 180-inch buck that I am after all year, or even a 150, and I get one opportunity a year at this thing, like I don't want my gear to be a failure point. And two, like if I am gonna pay 30 bucks a head, or if I am going to pay $10 a head or $15 a head for a mechanical and I get to use it one time and next year it costs me another 15 bucks and next year. And if I shoot multiple deer in a year, like all of a sudden, if I shoot 3 deer in a year, yep, there goes 40 bucks. I need to buy 40 bucks next year and 40 bucks the following year. Whereas these, you can just shoot, 2, 3, 4 deer a year, sharpen them back up, put them back on, you're good to go. Um, except in my case, you just can't lose the arrow. Like get a
Right,
pass through,
right.
you got to find that
Mm.
arrow.
Yeah, lighted nocks are good to have, help you find the arrow, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's fair. So I'm looking at your broadheads right now. All right, online. And this will be my last question, then we can wrap up. I know you gotta get rolling. You have like I'm looking at the wide cut. I like the wide cut for whitetails. I don't need as much penetration as I do an elk or something larger. So I can get a
Yeah.
bigger cut. Um, and you have the wide single bevel right, bevel left. What does that mean? You have, yeah,
Yeah, so on, with single bevel, so we make double bevel and single bevel, and with single bevel, you get some rotation through the animal. That pressure on the bevels will, on the top, that pressure is gonna push that blade to the right, on the bottom, push it to the left, and you create this rotation through the animal. It can open up holes, do a little more trauma inside potentially. But you want to match your fletching with your bevel. So if you're right fletched, and if you're looking at from the back, a right fletch means it would be going clockwise as it leaves the bow. You want to
mm,
use a right bevel broadhead, because that will just keep it rotating
mm,
clockwise through the animal. So you want to make sure you just match. If you're going to shoot a left fletch, get a left bevel. So that's the reason for making both a
gotcha.
right and left bevel.
So that's like, yeah, but if you just have like straight veins, there's no helical to it or anything like that, then are you just buying the standard? Or why would I
Um,
buy the standard wide 125?
you can shoot single bevels with straight fletch, or double bevel with straight fletch. I wouldn't. So a double bevel, the advantage there, it's there's really people in both camps on
Sure.
what they like better. I make them both, so I don't care which one you pick. I've shot them both a lot. In fact, I've been alternating between our S125 and SB125, single bevel 125 on elk and caribou and a lot of the western big game, just to see if I can really quantify a difference in performance. They both penetrate well. They both penetrate bone well. They both fly well. Um, it's more the shape of the holes is the main difference I see.
Mm,
Double bevel inherently, I think, is a good combination of strength and durability, with that pressure on both sides of the bevel as it's driving through the animal, driving through bone. Um, some people might prefer to resharpen a double bevel over single bevel, or vice versa. That might make you pick one or the other, but um, I would say that I don't think straight fletching is a good idea either way,
okay.
because you want some rotation in your arrow so that it averages out any asymmetries. Let's just say that let's just say you're shooting a half out and it's bent a little bit and the point's pointing off to the side 10 thousandths of an inch. If that arrow doesn't rotate, your arrow is just going to end up hitting off to the left,
Mm,
or right, depending on which way it's pointed off to. If it's rotating, it'll it'll take it'll correct that somewhat. It'll still open up your groups, but it's not just going to continue to veer off in one direction because of a straightness issue, or
gotcha.
not spinning true, something like that. So you do want some rotation. If people are telling you to go straight fletch, that's bad advice. There's no good
Well, it's
reason
yeah,
to go straight
it's usually
fletch,
what you get
I would
like
say.
out of the box, right? You go to Cabela's or Bass Pro Shops and you buy, a pack of Carbon Expresses or whatever, and it's just, three blazers straight fletch. There you go. Right?
Yep, a lot of factory fletching is 0 to 1 degree, and I like
Right.
more than that. I recommend like 2 degree, or 2 to 3 degree offset or helical.
Okay.
Um, and and I really think 2 is enough too for the guys that want a little bit less. Two works well. 2 is fine.
Yeah. Just to make sure that that thing's spinning at least one direction, so that it can help take, it's the same concept as spiraling within a gun barrel. Like it helps keep that accuracy and rotates it in the same in a direction to keep that accuracy tighter.
Yeah, and in a bullet, it's got to spin for stability because that's inherently an unstable
Yeah.
projectile. So, I mean, getting in the weeds a little bit here, but an arrow will still be. You don't need to spin to stabilize. The vanes will still stabilize it,
Okay.
um, but it averages out asymmetries, which will make it more accurate. And that's
Okay.
true even in field points. That's true. And
Gotcha.
typically a degree or so is enough with field points, but with a broadhead, I think 2 degrees is better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Great. Great to know. I did not know that. I didn't, I just assumed that like as long as you had 3 or 4 fletch, like you should be all right. But
And you probably are. Some of these things, like it doesn't have to get that complicated when you're shooting 20 to 30 yards. It really doesn't. But when I'm trying to hit 6-inch circle at 80 yards with broadheads in all conditions kind of thing, then all these things matter, right?
right,
And
right,
and
right. It
so,
amplifies.
um, it amplifies, yeah. So, it's I don't want people to think out there it's gotta be, "Man, this is super complicated." It doesn't have to be. I mean, put enough vein on the back, make sure you're properly spined. Those 2 are really easy to do. Get your bow just relatively well tuned, doesn't have to be great. That's not that difficult to do either, and you could stop with the paper tuning step probably for the most part if you're not shooting real far. That's not that much work to really get these things
Mhm.
shooting just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for the spine chart and everything, like you can go on your website and look that all up in the, where would that be on your website?
Yeah, you go to, ironwilloutfitters.com.
Is it
It's
arrow?
under, explore over to the
Okay.
right. It's the first thing under there, scientific reports and bow hunting blog.
Gotcha.
And
Fantastic.
then, yeah, there's the 3 university papers are there. Vane height and its effect on vane performance, arrow and vane drag, bow hunting vane stability and restoring torque. If you want to really understand arrow flight better with fixed blade heads, those are some great reports to read and to understand better what's happening.
Yeah. No, that's sweet. Fantastic. All right. So, for everybody listening, if they want to take a look at your broadheads and whatnot, ironwilloutfitters.com, right? You got
Right.
broadheads, you got knives, which I did. I did get a buddy of mine a knife a while back, and he loves that thing. He cut up an elk with it the other year, even though yeah, I got him a small one. But he cut up an elk with it. But you also have arrows, you got fletching, you got half outs, you got all your inserts, you got all your components, everything you need. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much. We make ultralight knives. Got to do a lot of backcountry hunting. I didn't feel like there was like a lot of good options at lightweight knives. So
Um,
our K1 weighs like 1.5 ounces with the handle, or about an ounce is a skeleton knife. And yeah, you can get through a whole elk with it. So anyway, for those guys that want something ultralight that are going to backpack, that's a great option there. Yeah, we make a reinforced hit system, which I feel like is the best way to connect a broadhead to an arrow and have good connection strength and save some arrows. So check out our reinforced hit system with our impact collars. And yeah, and now we've gotten into we offer a couple of vanes now, a hybrid hunter last year, and then our new Ironwill 2.5 vane is our latest from the university study this
gotcha.
past year. So yeah, check it out. We have YouTube channel, ironwilloutfitters.com, Instagram is at Ironwill Outfitters for those people that are on social media and interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you for hopping on, Bill. Really appreciate the time today. So and the next step is sheep hunt.
Yeah, I got to get packed here, so I got to get off the phone here,
Yeah,
finish my
yeah.
work up, and get packing. You bet.
Fantastic. Well, good luck. Thank you so much for hopping on. I really appreciate it. I hope to
Yeah,
see
thanks.
something posted on the old Instagram here in the next, week or two.
So what do you think is the best days to hunt in Wisconsin?
Oh,
Or-
finishing up with a good one. I personally, personal opinion, uh, I will take October, the first cold front from October 12th to October 20th. I will take
Really?
that first cold
Okay.
front over this is yeah, over anything else. So it's not a specific day,
Cool.
it's weather conditions within a time frame. The last I've been running cell cams have really kind of changed. You know, with the thing with non-cell cams or like regular cameras is you put them out and you collect all the data, but you don't get like that real time, hit. You don't organize them. A lot of people, at least me, I don't organize them into, specific days like, ooh, October 15th, I had this and this and this, or October 17th, I had this and this and this, what with cell cams now, I've got 7 of them. I put them out and I'll be like, oh man, it's a nice cold front day. Like this is a good day over the last couple years. And it's like, that first cold front in October, like in the teens, for me has been like big buck, big buck, big buck. First time daylighting on their feet on a scrape. And a couple years ago, first cold front, it was like October 17th. I knew it was a good day and I had to work, and 3 of my buddies all killed great bucks on October 17th. And like last year, first
Hmm.
good cold front, I shot a nice buck on October 6th. Um,
Huh.
so I'm a fan of that first good cold front in the teens of October. And even then,
Okay.
like I hunt a lot of so we have private land outside of Dodgeville, and then I hunt a lot of public land around our house. And even that, the reason I like the teens is because you still kind of have the public to yourself. People aren't as keyed in on
Right.
Halloween.
Right.
Right? Everybody, like
Yeah.
everybody and their brothers, like, "Ooh, it's Halloween, it's time to deer hunt."
Yep. Yep.
Um, so yeah, you can still get out there and kind of get some good scrape action, the least amount of pressure in that October mid-October timeframe. And even then, like I have phenomenal bucks on camera in that time frame on public. It just seems
Okay.
like for me, that's when I'm out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I figured you say like, November 1st or, November 8th or something like
Yeah.
that. So that's interesting. I'm gonna be elk hunting in Montana probably till mid-October.
Okay.
Their archery season goes all the way to mid-October. So it'd probably be, I probably won't. I don't turn to thinking about whitetail hunting myself because I'm hunting elk.
Yeah.
And sometimes mule deer into September and then uh elk in October yet. But
Hmm.
so anyway, it'll be November is when I'll be switching over and hitting Wisconsin and Indiana is my plans this year.
Nice. Yeah, for me, once it gets to November, um, I have not had good luck from November 1st to the 7th. Like they say the 7th and the 8th are like the best days to kill good bucks, like per the record books. I just haven't had the luck there. I don't know if it's the properties that I'm hunting, if it's the way I'm hunting. I don't know what it is, but I have had much better luck November 10th to the 16th. Like
Okay.
that second time frame. And I don't know exactly what it is, but I've it's just the way things work out for me. Like if you gave me a calendar and gave me 2 weeks to hunt whitetails, I'm gonna pick like the 17th to the 24th and then the 10th to the 17th of November. Um,
Okay. All right.
those
Good
are
to know.
my windows. And the nice thing about that earlier October stuff is the Bucks are kind of still in their homish range, and they're not running everywhere. They're kind of like outlining their territory.
Yeah.
So you can get them before they, really run, a half mile over to the neighbors to try to pick up some does and they get shot there or whatever. And you
Yeah.
know how it is in Wisconsin. There's plenty of hunters.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
And yeah, and a lot of times I'm just showing up and hunting. I haven't had cameras out. I haven't done any research. I'm just like showing up and hunting. And so when the rut's on and bucks are moving a lot is with my approach, that's probably better when they're
oh
just
yeah.
moving more because I have no idea if there's deer on this property or not. And I just show up and, try and hunt. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, and that's when I hunt out of state. That's my full intention is to go in
yeah,
November because you don't know what's going on versus trying to hunt like early October out of state. Like you kind of have to know what's going on.
Yep.
So, but then Indiana, like, man, I've heard that's like kind of a sleeper state. A lot of it's not like talked about as big bucks, but they're in there.
They definitely are. And we're in an area that gets hunted pretty heavy during the gun season. So it's hard for them to live very long, but they definitely got the genetics. There
Mm.
are occasionally giant bucks killed, in the area where I go. So it can be pretty good. Yep.
Yeah. No, well, good luck. Good luck. Maybe if you're down in that Dodge, do you hunt up by Montello? Well, we can talk about this offline, but maybe we can catch up in Wisconsin sometime if you're back in town
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, man, good luck in your season this year. Good luck in all your hunts. I hope you get pass throughs on everything and you just rack up that taxidermy bill.
I do almost all euros now because
Do you? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Too much money.
I might get 10 or 12 animals a year that I need to, I'm not going to taxidermy all those. So yeah, they're
Right.
just skull and antlers typically.
Fair
But
enough. Fair enough.
yeah, well, good luck. Good luck to you. And yeah, let's shoot me a text during uh,
During
deer
season.
season this year and let me know how you're doing.
You bet. You bet. Will do. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, please like, subscribe, tell a friend. Word of mouth is my best marketing tool right now. So if you would do that, and if you're so inclined, you enjoyed this podcast that much, please drop a review. That's super helpful in letting other people find the podcast. And with that, catch you next time.